Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. Today we're talking about a few odd cards from all over the market that we should be keeping an eye on going forward. We have Terminal Revenge out officially today, and then the Infinite Forbidden is just next month, so lots of stuff to watch out for. Now, even though the 2024 tins are pretty close as well, remember that we have Nationals next month, so there's going to be a ton of players that are really scrambling for certain cards and techs, hoping to be ahead of everyone else for the event. Let's get started. Alright, so kicking things off, we're talking about a card that isn't exactly new news, it's Fable Lury. So this card is among the first of the cards that spiked in price once the Fiendsmith archetype was revealed. It's the monster that you usually search for and then discard with the normal spell, I think called Fiendsmith Tractus, and this card is a light fiend that special summons itself onto the field when it's discarded. It is an absolute necessity if you're planning on playing the Fiendsmith engine at all next format, and really the engine kind of goes into everything. It works well with Rescue Ace, Yubel, Snake Eyes. It's just so generic but really strong at the same time. Now the reason that we're talking about this card is that we're about a month away from the release of the Infinite Forbidden here in the TCG, and the hype for the card is definitely building. I see a ton of players asking for this card online, but I feel like there's only so many copies to go around. I'm not going to look at the DT printing since those are obviously kind of absurd to me. I rarely ever see them move for anywhere close to what they're technically priced at on TCG Player. However, we do have the supers from Hidden Arsenal 2 coming in at $12 to $13, and then the common reprint from Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1 coming in at $8 to $10. If you guys don't own this card, I think you absolutely have to if you plan on playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Next format. I could definitely see this card easily hitting the $20 mark for even those lower rarity versions by the time that Nationals rolls around. The only thing is that I could definitely see Konami reprinting this in something like an OTS tournament pack, or maybe just slipping it into the 2024 tins, which is the only reason that I would avoid holding on to too many copies of this card particularly. So while we're talking about Fiend cards, the next card to talk about is the Unchained Soul Lord of Yama. So Yama is of course a link monster for the Unchained archetype with two really useful effects. On summon, it searches for an Unchained monster, and then while it's in the graveyard, if a card you control is destroyed, you can banish Yama to special summon a fiend from your hand or graveyard as well. Of course, this card searches for Sharvara, which is now limited to 1, and then it's able to revive Soul of Rage for disruption, Sharvara to make a rank 6 monster, or any of your other toolbox fiend monsters as well. Now, fiends are definitely getting a ton of hype right now, with Phantom of Yubel coming in Terminal Revenge, and the Fiendsmith archetype coming in the Infinite Forbidden. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what the deck can do. With Yama, it has only ever been printed in the Duelist Nexus set. We have the quarter century version that's done nothing but trend upwards over time. I remember buying these like a year ago at around $80 to $90 each. They're literally like $180 right now. And then with the Ultras, they've fluctuated anywhere between $15 and $30. They are currently at the higher end of that spectrum at $25 to $30 each right now. Now this card is slated to be reprinted in the 2024 tins. The thing is that with Nationals happening before the tins come, I could definitely see this card spiking in price before it eventually comes down to a much more reasonable level. Okay, so this may seem like an odd one, especially considering that the printing we're talking about is only 50 cents. It's Infernoid Deviati. So in Terminal Revenge, of course, Infernoids are getting some absolutely ridiculous support, but Konami has also reprinted the vast majority of the Infernoid cards so that you can basically build the entire deck with just cards from the set. There are a couple of exceptions. As we talked about before, Antra isn't in there, but neither is Deviati. Deviati was actually in the first Battles of Legend set, Light's Revenge, and even with that as its only accessible printing, which came out a few years ago, there's enough floating around on the market that it's still only about a 50-cent card. It's definitely an important card for Infernoids. You want to send this card to the graveyard with Decatron so that you can copy its effect, since Deviati is the monster effect negation. So yeah, as we mentioned, this card is only about 50 cents or so right now, but I think it's still worth noting and adding to your trade binder. It's an older card, so definitely something that not many people are just going to have lying around in their trade binders. So if you can find someone at your locals this weekend that really wants to build Infernoids and needs to pick up this card, see if you can offload it finally, or convert it via trades into something that's a little bit more worthwhile. This is a pretty interesting and iconic card, it's Swap Frog. Now I know that Frog Monarchs are a really popular deck in Edison format. In the current format, however, Swap Frog is a useful card because it synergizes with a new card for the Ice Barrier theme. Swap Frog on summon can send any level 2 or lower water monster from your deck to the graveyard, and in Terminal Revenge we have a new card called Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier. Now when Mirror Mage is sent to the graveyard, it searches for any Ice Barrier card. So in certain packages, you're searching for Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier, which is a monster reborn for a level 4 or lower Ice Barrier. Now in pure Ice Barriers, you can choose to tech swap Frog in, since dumping Mirror Mage means that you can search for any of your Ice Barrier stuff. On top of that, Mirror Mage has another effect that's just really good for the Ice Barrier deck in general. However, the other place that this is useful is in Sprite. I believe that they now play 3 Swap Frog and 1 Mirror Mage, and 1 Freezing Chains as a way to quickly bring out Totally Awesome as an Omni Negate. Definitely a cool tech, but it's causing a lot of eyes to move to Swap Frog. Now interestingly enough, the ultimate rares have actually gone down. These were at $160 to $170 before, but I think they're now closer to about $100 each. I know that Rarity Collection has definitely hit the high-end market, and it's caused a lot of these luxury rare printings, even though they're not in a Rarity Collection set necessarily, to go down in value over time because there's such a high chance that they would be reprinted in a set like that. The Ultras are the version that have gone up. They're the only other holo versions, so they're kind of like the mid-rarity. I think they were just too cheap for most players to pass up on at only $1, and so they are now $2 to $3 a piece. The card does still have a common printing as well if you can find them. Either of them are going to work. This is definitely a card to own a set of if you are planning on trying out either Ice Barriers or Sprite this upcoming format. Okay, so here's a card that's come up multiple times in the past but has never seen play. It's number C104 Umbral Horror Masquerade. Now this card is a rank 5 Spellcaster Xyz monster, and this card in particular is trending because of the Performage support that we just had revealed to be coming in Rage of the Abyss. The new rank up magic spell card lets you summon out a rank 5 Spellcaster on top of your rank 4, which is supposed to get out the new Performage cards, but players have realized that maybe number C104 might be a bit better. This card is supposed to basically be impossible to bring out, but if you do, it destroys a Speller Trap card on the field on summon, and then if you have number 104, the regular version, underneath this card as a material, it literally like negates your opponent's monster effect on the field, rips a card from their hand, and cuts their life points in half. So yeah, I don't know how realistic it is to actually be able to bring this card out consistently, but if you do and this card doesn't get hit by an Imperm or a Droplet or something, it's probably putting you in a pretty good spot. Weirdly enough, this card was only ever printed in Judgment of the Light as both a super rare and ultimate rare. The supers aren't up by much, they're like $2 or so right now, but the ultimate rares are up to between $25 and $30 for a near mint copy. Now if I had to make a bet, I would definitely sell this card because every time it's been hyped up in the past, it never does anything, and then it just tanks in price anyways. So definitely look to move on from this card if you still own it for whatever reason. Alright, a pair of cards to look at here. We have Centurion Primera and Centurion Trudea. So these two cards are of course key cards for the Centurion deck, a deck that's kind of annoying because they're able to pull off the Calamity Lock so consistently, but like that's kind of all they really feel like they're good at doing. Now the Centurion theme is actually something that looks like it might be really good after the Infinite Forbidden. They combine well with the toy cards, which we're getting in Terminal Revenge, and the Whitewoods, which are in the Infinite Forbidden. The toy Centurion Whitewood deck is pretty strong over in the OCG, so I believe that some eyes are on the deck here for the TCG as well. An interesting thing about the Centurion cards is that they're actually at their lowest price point ever. These two were the most expensive ones for the Centurion archetype, and among the most expensive Ultras in the set Valiant Smashers, but they're each coming in now around $17 to $20, while I believe we've seen them hit highs of around $35 to $40 in the past. Really surprising when you consider that they're possibly going to be a meta-relevant deck next format. I think the thing we're not sure about is if the cards are in the 2024 tins, since Valiant Smashers isn't listed in the product description, but technically it could be in there since it does say "and more." The other thing is that there is a possibility of Calamity finally being banned, since it's literally just a turn skip that's kind of degenerate to play against. But yeah, these are definitely cards to keep an eye on over the next month or so. It's possible that the ban list drops in such a way that Centurion is perfectly positioned to do well next format alongside the new archetypes coming out. And finally, the last card we're looking at is Evil Twins Kissikill and Lilla. So this isn't the first time we've talked about this card either, but it hasn't really come up in a while. This card is kind of funny. You special summon it by tributing 2 Link monsters, and it can make your opponent send their own cards to the graveyard. However, this card actually isn't used for that effect. This card is used because of Evil Twin Trouble Sunny, a Link 4 monster that's sent to the graveyard as a target for Ultimate Slayer. Trouble Sunny makes you send an evil twin from your hand or deck to the graveyard to send an opponent's card to the graveyard as well, and this just happens to be one of the best cards for you to run, since it's the only one that could potentially be useful in some very specific situations if you do happen to draw it. So we finally had Ultimate Slayer reprinted in Rarity Collection 2, so now everyone will have access to the card, and it's actually a pretty great way to get out of Appaloosa. But you also have to dump a Link monster to bounce the Appaloosa, and sending Trouble Sunny there and then getting access to its other effect at the cost of running a single brick in your main deck isn't bad value at all. It's just that now more and more players have access to Ultimate Slayer, so the quantities on the market are dwindling slightly. I believe that this is also a tech that's popular in the OCG as well, so that could certainly be an inspiration for some players. The collector's rare is still relatively cheap. We just have to pay attention to the ultras, which were around $6 or $7. They're now almost double that at $10 to $12 each. This card has just the one printing. It'll probably not be reprinted until we finally get those Evil Twin alternate arts imported to the TCG, so definitely keep that in mind if you're looking to pick up copies of this card. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's episode. Best of luck with all of your pulls from Terminal Revenge if you guys are opening the set. I think I have most of the stuff by now, but the thing I am looking for is Quarter Century Lancia because it just looks so amazing. I love the way that the Ice Barrier dragons really look, so I'm looking forward to collecting those. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, make sure you let me know. Hit that thumbs up button, leave a comment in the comment section down below, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.